Welcome to Marriage, Let's Talk, hosted by legendary worldwide marriage encounter leader, Father Rosy Rosebrough, featuring Catholic married couples from around the world who demonstrate healthy communication for building better marriages. And now, here's Father Rosy.
Hi, Father Rosy here. I'm glad you could join us today. This podcast is not talking about marriage. It is where we're going to share how to create a better marriage through communicating feelings in authentic ways. Tonight we have Kevin and Wendi O'Brien, who we introduce now. Hello, Kevin and Wendi.
Hello.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
No basketball game tonight, no volleyball game tonight.
Nope.
All the seasons are over.
Without describing the timeline of your weekend, what are some of the things that jump out at you your first time you went on the Marriage Encounter weekend? What kind of strikes you as you look back?
Honestly, the number one thing for me is how exhausted I was by the end of the weekend. That was a really big deal. But
Eliminate that, Rick.
I always laugh. I'm like, he was doing construction work, trying to break down the walls that I had built. So he was pretty tired.
I broke through.
What kind of so the element obviously, but what was behind that? What if I say construction walls, people are going to think you're nuts. Of course you're from Fort Dallas, or therefore Fort Worth, therefore. Of course, you have to tear down the fort.
Yeah, definitely.
Scale the walls.
Scale the walls. Scale the fort. We had started just kind of drifting apart. Kevin had been in a master's program, and I just felt like I needed to hold everything together, hold the family together, hold myself together, and I kind of pushed him away. And he got done with that. Got done with that master's program, and I didn't know how to open up again. And so it took us learning a new way to talk to one another. So my biggest memory was the very first dialogue. I was like, okay, I wasn't really excited about this weekend, but if we're gonna do it, I'll go all the way. And so I was very honest in my letter. And Kevin comes in and he tosses he just kind of like tosses his letter on the bed. And he's like, I don't think we have much to talk about. And I just stopped and I looked at him and I was like, and he goes, oh.
Yeah, that's about what I would say. Just, and I sort of sat down. I was like, okay, let's have it.
Okay. So yeah, we really went in, we dove deep that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So your response to her face and her response of shock stilted you to do something different than you had planned to do, right, Kevin?
Yeah. Originally, I got into the weekend thinking it was going to be like kind of somewhat similar to retreats that I did in the past when I was in youth group, thinking it was going to be like, a couple cool Catholic talks, some moonlit walks, and just kind of hanging out. And it was a lot more than that. Yeah. It was really just the two of us. Everyone else there was just they just happened to be in the same place we were. We almost talked to nobody the entire weekend, which is exactly what I wanted as well.
Beautiful. Okay, but thank you. What topic have you chosen tonight for the reflection?
Okay, tonight we chose a topic of unpleasant news, when we have to share unpleasant news with one another.
And we're going to discuss our feelings on this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my letter. So, my beloved Wendi, your most endearing quality today was your understanding about the new driver rules that we have with our daughters in the new car. When I have to give unpleasant news to you, I often feel very worried, concerned, and hesitant. Hesitant is really my strongest feeling. I dislike adding to your stress level, and that's why it's so strong to me. So to touch this hesitant feeling, it feel really fuzzy, like getting shocked or like static electricity. It would sound like an annoying buzzing in my ears that just won't quit. It would taste like coffee that burns your tongue. Physically, I want to withdraw and kind of put up my hands. In nature, this would be a rabbit that just puts its nose out to kind of test the air, maybe one whisker. My intensity on this is an 8. This is similar to waiting. A lot of times for me, this is really similar to waiting in line at confession or waiting for odd news at a doctor's office. You don't really know what they're coming out for. I love you, Kevin.
Thank you. My beloved, your most endearing quality in the past 24 hours was sharing with me how my actions hurt you. Thank you for forgiving me. How do I feel when I have to share unpleasant news with you? Recently, I have not wanted to share unpleasant news with you, especially when it is admitting to my own fault by my actions or lack thereof. I hate to admit it even now, but I feel so vulnerable. I want to hide. My vulnerable would be a 10 on the intensity scale 1 to 10. It would be the bright yellow color of a caution sign on a dark night as you drive down a road. It would be the part of the movie Secondhand Lions when all the signs tell the young family to turn back and the boy says, maybe we should have called first. My vulnerable creates the freeze response in my body. I do not want to fight or flee, but lay down and just stop. It is similar to when a little kid breaks something at grandma's house and has to go tell grandma. It gives me a cold feeling, but that might just be the weather. My vulnerable would taste hot and spicy like a sauce that lingers in your mouth for far too long. In nature, this would be the beaver that placed a log and broke the whole dam, which then dried up the pond. I feel vulnerable like this when I have to tell our children no to an event they have been planning. I love you, Wendi. Okay, so I liked your rabbit with his nose sticking out.
Sticky.
I could really see that.
Mm-hmm. I picked up on a lot of what you said in there too, particularly the couple different things that were in there. You actually ranked yours at 10, where mine really was just an 8. I kind of think yours might be a little bit more intense than mine. And the other time I think we dialogued on my feeling anyway. So would you like to dialogue on yours tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to share it with you.
Okay. So her feeling word exactly again here was vulnerable. So a lot of times when I think of vulnerability, I think of kind of an openness where you're uncomfortable. Is it that kind of a feeling, or is it something more of like you want to pull back and hide?
No, definitely the hide.
Okay, so it's definitely more kind of a hiding. So it could be somewhat similar to my hesitant, where like I kind of want to step back and kind of put your hands up.
No, I think in my body, really that freeze response, or like I just need to lay down, like it almost makes me physically tired thinking about being vulnerable in this way. Like you really want to avoid it.
To avoid, okay. And you said like kind of just want to lay down. So does it drain you of energy? Like your just energy just kind of flows out when that happens.
Yeah.
You just don't want to move.
Yeah.
I think of this a little bit too. I kind of like how you talked about the freeze response, and I think of that a lot of times, like when I was a kid at grandma's house, and you break something, and you just, or you're in the kitchen with mom, and you drop her favorite pitcher on the floor, and you just kind of sort of freeze instantly, like, oh my God, did that just really happen? And you're kind of almost like have to process. It's almost like a scared freeze, but not like a frightened, but just sort of like, oh my gosh, what happened? Did it really just happen? It's like you're processing it. You don't want to move again for fear of doing something else.
I know what you're talking about, but no, that's a different kind of freeze.
It's a different kind of freeze than that. Okay. And so this, let me look back at your letter here. What were some other of your descriptions here?
The beaver that.
Oh, the beaver that throws the log on there, and it's kind of, is there a sense of disappointment with this? Like, I can't believe I just did that, because it's like, oh, I just threw the log and the whole thing fell.
Yeah. And then there's kind of like, admitting to like, yeah, I made a big mistake. So yeah, that disappointment and that,
So it's like a hesitation of almost like it's having to admit that you did something wrong
yeah,
and having to be open.
and honest.
I kind of come back to the like telling grandma I broke the
Yeah,
statue or whatever it was,
yeah,
or the doorbell.
yeah. Did you break a doorbell?
That's a discussion for another night.
That's a story I want to know about. I've never known that one. I think you're experiencing my feeling for sure. Yeah, the doorbell, the broken doorbell.
Broken doorbell. I love you.
I love you too.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin and Wendi. I was just thinking when I was hearing you talk, I was thinking of the feeling. I like Charlie Brown. I love Charlie Brown and all the characters so much. And so when Charlie Brown was embarrassed, but he wanted to be found, he played hide and seek. He'd hide his head, but leave his butt out to be caught. You ever see that cartoon?
Yes, I have. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because then Lucy goes around and says, well, I guess he's not worth finding. And then Charlie Brown, she says, did I hear a sigh? Like they're not worth it, and so did you, I guess, what interesting, when you take the risk of trust to tell him about your vulnerable feeling, what kind of response do you have inside of you when he responds to that?
It makes it just so much more easier to trust him, that I can just like talk about that feeling and describe that feeling, and then also to see like that he can understand and he's been there, like he really does like grasp what that feeling has been. I feel understood and heard and accepted, and it's okay I feel that way.
And I think that to me is one of the greatest gifts of the marriage encounter, that allows a couple of technique to be the Charlie Browns, but more openly, instead of trying to half hide and half leave out.
Yeah.
The tush is out in the aisle. But once you start writing about it and open up to trust to write, then it's full body response to each other. And when I'm nervous, when I do that, and you talk about a feeling, my feet go back and forth underneath the table, back and forth. I'm dialoguing with a couple, and at the table, I want to get it over with, but I'm taking the risk, and it's like my speech is faster, my heart's beating faster until I get it out. And once it's out, there's a peace comes over me. They haven't withdrawn from me. And that's what I notice in couples when they dialogue and they go back and forth and they trust me to be a part of that. There's that union that you can't get anyplace else. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. Particularly when you, whether it's actually about something important or even something a little less important, it's that first discussion that you kind of have, and then, or it's that opening and throwing out there kind of something that, this could go either way. It's kind of, it feels a little bit to me like a 50-50 gamble. How is she gonna react to this? And then when I see her react in a way that's more of exploratory and open and wanting to kind of see and understand it rather than come back at me with some type of an argument or something else instead, it completely changes the situation. It changes the conversation, and it changes the way I feel towards her.
I was thinking that when you see her eyes or his eyes looking at you and leaning in, instead of telling me more, instead of leaning way back, you're like, that's nice, that's what else is on the table, you take that risk. And I thought that struck me is that if I was your children, I'd make sure you dialogue before I ask you a question of a special favor.
That's actually a pretty good idea. Usually I tell them to throw some candy at me, but that's not a bad idea too.
Should I teach the girls how to do that? Wait till your parents dialogue, have a good session, and then ask them for a special favor that you want to do for school or something.
Yeah.
The yeses become a lot easier after that.
Well, because your love is dynamic, and it's not a standstill object that's outside of you. That all of a sudden, if a couple continues to have that intimacy, then they also draw closer to each other, and the kids, the children, those around you will sense that. You can sense that in your own parents or other people when they're close. There's something that glows about them, and you want that nerd that rubs off of you. That's the witness, I think, of a couple's love.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I was just really surprised. A couple of people told us, they said, go ask your children if you were different afterwards. It's like, my kids are going to say no. And they all were emphatically, oh yeah, y'all were very different after you came back from that weekend. And we all really, really like whatever change you made. It was shocking to me.
A couple that I've known since 1984, and they made the weekend in 91. And the daughter used to be, I guess when I first met her, she's like maybe 6, 7 years old. Now she's 10 years later, or 8 years later, she's like, a young adult, a young teenager, like 15 or 16 or so. And all of a sudden she called me up that night, right after the family got home. She said, "What'd you do to them? What happened to them? They're not normal. They're crazy." I just laughed and roared because the daughter noticed immediately. Because you can't hide intimacy of a couple. It just shows so beautifully. So amen. So thank you so much tonight. Amen. And Wendi, tell your girls, now's the time to ask you for a favor.
Well, we will. Thank you, Father Rosy. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you all again tonight. Thank you all very much.
We love you too.
I'm so grateful for the guests we had today who shared willingly themselves in their dialogue. And thank you for joining us. I look forward to the next episode when I join you again once more.
This has been Marriage, Let's Talk, sponsored by Worldwide Marriage Encounter, the foremost faith-inspired marriage enrichment organization in the world, providing married couples with transformative experiences through couples retreats, small groups, and more. Learn to nurture love in your marriage at wwme.org. Marriage, Let's Talk is a production of Mater Media, the apostolate that offers the Celebrate Catholic Marriage experience to energize and fortify married couples through parish events and the 7-step journey to joy. Find out more at matermedia.org.